Hello, Quinnell, and welcome to Q Today. I'm Nate Bello.
And I'm Mitch Vick, and this is our show for December the 7th, 2012.
Coming up in today's show, there was a big bust, 350 plants of pot,
Huge.
And Mark Giuseppe writes a letter to the editor.
And coming up later in the show, we have that debate we've been promising you on whether or not pot should be legalized.
Okay, but here at Q Today, we just bring you the highlights with our partnership with the Quinnell Observer for the whole story. Look at the Quinnell Observer. We have our own commentary, and we bring you our own stories from the field and you. Okay, now for some news. Mitch.
First story. We have a pot bust that netted 350 plants. And they were big, healthy plants, apparently. So, the RCMP have taken out another marijuana grow-op. Autumn McDonald brought us the story of how members of the North District Integrated Marijuana Enforcement Task Force, and yes, that is a mouthful, and our local government and local detachment, along with assistance from North District Drug Section, executed a search warrant in the 4200 block of Nasco Highway, and that's about 40 kilometers west of Quinnell. They arrested a 39-year-old male suspect. With him 350 large, healthy marijuana plants. The male's first appearance is set to be March the 12th, and I think this brings up an important point. Considering our neighbors to the south in Washington, as of Thursday night, will be able to possess small amounts of marijuana legally.
That's right.
So what does that mean about the future of these big busts?
It's going to be problematic, that's for sure. Will this be the end of this criminalization of marijuana? Well, you know what? We can look forward to the debate between Ron Campbell and Bert deVink later on in the show, and maybe that'll shed a little bit of light.
Maybe a little clarity?
A little clarity, or maybe a little vagueness, who knows. But anyway. Depends whose side you want. You're taking. Okay, but we're looking for that a little bit later. Okay, court update. There's 3 cases that Autumn McDonald, of the editor of the Observer, is following, and we're following too. First, April 8th is the date for the trial of Robert Merrow and Cale Como in connection with a shooting in June of this year. It happened on the 400 block of Hartley Street, and although no one was injured, the rounds did penetrate the siding and windows. The RCMP would like to remind public that this was a targeted attack. Secondly, on another front, Chad LaFlemme is seeking bail. LaFlemme is charged with possession of a controlled substance. We've got a theme on this program. For the purpose of trafficking, assaulting a police officer, being unlawfully in a dwelling house, possession of stolen property, and trespassing at night. And thirdly, Arthur Topham will have his day in court Thursday, December the 13th. He is charged with willful promotion of hatred. He denies the charge and says that he's hoping to raise awareness surrounding free speech and the definition of hate crimes. Okay, so that we've taken care of the legal aspect of the show, hopefully.
Let's get to a little lighter
okay,
topic
crossover.
Here. Crossover, a local business in town. They offer handmade collectibles. Danica Ebert wrote a feature article on this new small business in our community. Peggy Glover is living her dream by opening a boutique with her family's support. Sid Dickens tiles are one of the centerpieces of her sales. They're collectible handmade tiles made by Vancouver artists. She is also offering 2 lines of jewelry and garden accessories. How does she decide what to carry, you ask?
Yes.
Well,
how does she decide what to carry?
It's pretty simple. In her words, everything in here, if it's something she'd like to take home, she'll carry it. So she's got good taste, I guess.
Okay.
Glover grew up in Quinnell and says it's really nice seeing familiar faces come on into her store, and her store is located at 397 Kinchant. So come and see her collectibles and some craft related stuff, and she's put her stamp of approval on everything.
Right, and you're a small business owner yourself,
Certainly.
with Tammy, your wife, and is it true, does it seem that things are expanding a little bit in the small business world? I see a few of these gift stores opening up lately, and I know that many closed down within a year. There's some bad statistics, but do we really have stats?
You know what, I was just thinking about that, and it's really hard to tell, because you're right, there's coming and going. And maybe in the new year, this is a project we should take a look at and see the state of business licenses and see if there is some growth. My sense is that it's holding its own.
Holding its own.
Yeah.
Okay. It's nice to see people getting involved. I just don't want them to lose their shirt after a little while.
Yeah.
You know, you get the initial, wow, yeah, and then, ooh, you
peter
gotta go
out.
every day. Is it 7 days a week?
Well, no, we have a life, my wife and I, but it's certainly not a 40-hour-a-week deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Okay, well, good luck to the new show. What's it called? The new
Crossover.
Crossovers. Okay. Now, a letter from the editor that we thought was pretty interesting. It was from Mark Giuseppe, and he's a well-known environmentalist in Quesnel. He wrote a letter on behalf of the Quesnel Climate Action Group. And it was an open letter to Steve Thompson, who's the Ministry for Forests. It's regarding the recently produced government document entitled Beyond the Beetle, a midterm timber supply action plan. On behalf of the Climate Action Group, Giuseppe states that the group is definitely opposed to opening up more logging areas. He notes that the government has not said they will unequivocally do so, but they do say that a community may open up the process of expanding logging boundaries, and they're opposed to that. Rather, QCAG wants government to follow the advice of its own, the government's own, Future Forest Ecosystem Scientific Council, which is in favor of expanding the reserved area, no logging area, and promoting forest diversity. The local groups want any decision to be based on the impact it will have on climate change. The more trees allowed to live, the more carbon they pull out of the atmosphere. In their view, it's both a credit and there's both a credit and a debit side to the ledger that people should be looking at, government should be looking at, specifically companies who should be required to pay for all the carbon release in burning slash, but should get credit when they're producing some bioproducts or energy. So I wonder if this makes sense to you. Is it important to do, or does it sound too idealistic, or does it sound downright wrong? You could email us at qtoday@qcatv.ca with your opinion. And I just want to say, Mitch, that this morning I was on the radio. Do you get up at 10 to 7?
Not usually.
Well, they got me up at 10 to 7, and I was talking to the radio about the impact of the Burns Lake mill closure reopening would have on Quesnel. And that's kind of related to this whole idea of forest health. You know, and I was saying, you know, we're not going to put the Burns Lake is in survival mode. What seems to be the underlying current is it's going to pit communities against communities where to get that resource. And my opinion basically is, hey, we've got to look at the wider picture. The wider picture is how much do we diversify? And that goes along with Mark Giuseppe's letter there. We need to diversify. You know, we can't leave it up to the companies. The companies are like taxi cab drivers, okay? They take our wood and then they bring it somewhere. You know, and it's not their fault. They've got shareholders, they got to make money, and they realize, and in their view, 2x4s is what it is, and they'll do a little bit of thing, but it's all based on a business plan. What the government, which is the people, have to say is here's the standard, here's the bar. We need so much diversification, we need so much employment, we need so much to protect our ecosystems. So anyway, you know, it's such a big issue, and we really need to talk about it more. Like, where's CBAC, Caribbean Beetle Action Coalition? Are they getting funding anymore? You know, they were set up to kind of explore this. What's going on? We need more information now.
Well, you think with an election around the bend that this would prompt some meaningful discussion on this important issue. Hopefully we'll see some good conversation about it.
Yeah, you know,
and then we can decide on May, I believe May 18th,
something around there,
on what direction we want to go on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So moving on into sports, the Roos unfortunately finished their road trip with a loss. and it was a big loss, unfortunately. In the beginning of the game, they had a chance, and then it kind of fell apart. So they held their own for the most of the first period, even outshooting the Stampeders 14-10. Some bright lights there, very good news. After the Stamps took a 3-1 lead, the Roos tried to come back with a couple of breakaways. We had some chances. They had a chance at an empty net, couldn't bury it, and then they had a disallowed goal, caused some frustrations to grow there. And then there was a fight, and then the battle went on and on into the third, and Williams Lake got their 4th goal. Frustrations rose a little bit more, but the Roos did not give up. They scored a goal, but the referee disallowed it. They said it was after the whistle, and then that was pretty much it. Fist fights broke out, lots of penalties, and the final score was 6-1. Bit of a blowout.
But there's hope, Mitch.
There
There's
is
hope.
always hope. They're back in town this weekend, and we're planning to get some great video for their next game. Our own Scott Elliott will be in attendance, and we'll have some highlights of that on our next show.
Okay, great. And you know, Williams Lake is in first place, so you know, they were fighting the best. So
Absolutely.
okay. So we've been talking about the Lions Club shopping spree. It's coming to an end. Make sure you get your ticket. There's 1 or 2 more days left, but on December the 8th, that will be the day of the draw, and on the 18th will be the big spree. And we're talking to Allison that we might get our little camera there and kind of do something there. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah,
right?
it's going to be a great event.
Yeah. And then the garage sales are December 8th and the 15th. Last week I was up there talking to Pat at their Christmas show. Sound wasn't great, but what the heck? You got the visuals there, and so they've got two more to go, and hopefully they rake in a lot of money because it all goes back to the community.
Absolutely, every penny.
Okay.
Earlier, we brought you a story on that big pot bust. Well, we want to get to the root of the matter. Should marijuana be legalized in British Columbia? Nate sat down with Bert deVink and Ron Campbell for a mini debate. As you might expect, Bert was for, Ron was against, and Nate asked each of them 3 questions about the need for legalization, the practicality for doing so, and any advantages to making pot legal. You be the judge.
Okay, we're here for a little bit of a discussion. I've got Bert deVink here, and I've got Ron Campbell. They're both good members of the Quesnel Media Access Group.
We are.
And you've been we've been doing a great job on Quesnel Media Access Group, but an interesting story came up just a month or so ago, and it's when the state of Washington, at their election day, set the process for legalizing marijuana. Okay, so that's been a big discussion in British Columbia over the last few years.
Yeah.
A guy named Dana Larson ran for leader of one of the parties, the NDP, on that specific thing that he wanted to decriminalize marijuana. But we're going to actually go all the way on legalization of marijuana. And if our people out there, our viewers, have any idea, guess what? It's Bert who's in favor of legalization. You may not have guessed this, and it's Ron is totally opposed to the idea of legalization. I mean, I know that's a surprise to you guys out there, but these are the guys, that's where they are. So I'm going to ask them, each of them will have 3 questions to answer in a minute or 2, and then they'll have closing comments. Okay. And we'll start up with the affirmative with Bert deVink. Bert, you feel that legalization is a good thing to do, right?
I definitely do, yeah.
Okay, so why do we need to legalize marijuana? You've got one or 2 minutes.
Okay, the cost of legalizing marijuana compared to the time used by police and courts, and the fact that after 40 years, we can roughly say that during the hippie time, which is 40 years ago, it started, marijuana use has grown through all layers of society. It's taken up an immense amount of police and court time, and the cost is ridiculous compared to legalization, which has a lot of favors in it. We can now start taxing marijuana and put it under strict control.
So we have there is a need to do this then?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, but you don't think that we need to do this, do you, Ron? Why not?
Definitely not. Bert is stating that because it's being used, we should legalize it. That's like leaving my door open because I know somebody's going to rob it. The move across North America to decriminalize the use of marijuana is a cash-driven delusion that will create a society that will be dependent on a so-called recreational drug. It is a drug, period. A drug that should not be used.
Okay, so it's a matter of principle for you, and there's no need to do it. Okay, that's their answer on need. What do you guys think? Do you think there is a need to legalize marijuana? Okay, we're going to go on to question 2 now. Bertram deVink.
Yes.
Okay, or Hubert. Is your real name Hubert?
Hubertus.
Hubertus. Hubertus.
Yes, sir.
Okay, will it be practical to legalize? You said there was a need, but is it really practical? Can the society really do legalize marijuana?
I think they can. If we look at the facts again, then 85% of the growing of marijuana is now in the hands of organized crime. This is a shame because, again, the court costs and policing costs are incredibly high. And the money they make on growing marijuana has also another side effect, and that is the money is used by organized crime for the import of cocaine and guns. This is a known fact. And I'm quoting here from the police commission that came out with this report and made those statements. So what I'm saying are statements made by the policing society. And there's also a study done by the professors at the University of UBC and Simon Fraser, which came to the same conclusion, that it would be a waste of our police time and court time, money that we now could use to help people out. Health care and stuff like that will be greatly assisted by having the money that is made on marijuana.
So it is practical then? It can be done?
Well, if you think it's practical to use the police in a losing case, because after more than 40 years, the amount of grow-ups in BC have doubled between 2000 and 2010. You know, despite all the police effort, marijuana is now used in all layers of society. It is not just a bunch of hippies anymore. It is professional. It's all over it. So, and if you look at the use of alcohol and stuff like that, then alcohol has a very bad effect, and smoking is another one. Those two, the studies in that area have proven that the legalization has helped in diminishing the amount of use. Another good example is the Netherlands, where it was legalized. And in Holland right now, the use of marijuana by the people in Holland has diminished. And that's a fact.
Okay, thank you, Hubertus. You don't think it's practical, do you, Ron?
No, I don't. There's a couple of things that Bert brought up. One is the waste of money for policing it. Well, that money that is coming in 18 different states have brought legalization of marijuana into play. All of the money that's coming in is, they just give you a total. They do not give you a total of the amount of money that's needed. You mentioned health care. Once you start smoking this, it damages your lungs and it damages your ability to think. All of these things that marijuana does, there are some bad side effects. That means that under the health care system, we would be paying out more to look after those symptoms that are caused by the continued use of marijuana. I have a list here of things that marijuana does against. It decreases the hippocampus growth, which is short-term memory loss. It causes paranoia and can lead to other mental disorders. Inhaling damages the lungs. And you mentioned the other thing. There's always going to be a criminal element in the use of any drug.
Including cigarettes and tobacco?
Yes.
I mean, cigarettes and alcohol?
In Ontario, they bring in cigarettes illegally. There was one band that was raided because they brought cigarettes illegally and not selling them without tax. Alcohol, we legalize it and let people sell it. We still have bootleggers that are selling alcohol. In some remote areas, they try to make their own alcohol. So they still have to police that. So cigarettes, alcohol, and now you want to put a drug on the market to do the same thing. I don't think it's practical at all that we should encourage the use of something that can have a bad effect on our health and on our society. Because it's a depressant, and it causes one to slow down. You know, old age will do that on its own, so why should we hasten the process?
Okay, Ron, at that we'll stop you there. We're going to legalize old age. Anyway, Bert,
Yeah.
last question to you.
Okay.
And then you could kind of have a little interaction there and have your closing comments. This is the advantages. Why would it be positive to legalize marijuana? What's so good about it?
Well, for one study by the professors of the University of UBC and Simon Fraser's, they came up with some figures, and what they claim is that legalizing marijuana per se could generate $2.5 billion. Now that's $2.5 billion is a lot of money.
Per year?
Per year, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is that marijuana has medical things that are really good. For instance, people who take chemotherapy, instead of taking a pill, marijuana would do twice as much as a pill does.
You mean a pill to get rid of the bad symptoms?
The bad
You
symptoms.
still take take the chemo.
You still
but-
take the chemo, and you get nauseous usually.
Right. Okay.
And the nauseous is cut out with pills as a rule.
Right.
But in marijuana will do the same thing.
Okay.
It also has a healthy effect on your eyes. Glaucoma, for instance, is helped by marijuana. Despite what people say, depression is now used. People who smoke marijuana don't have depression. The other thing is, if you compare it to alcohol, I've never, ever in my life heard somebody smoking a joint and go and attacking his family, like in alcohol. And alcohol is legal. And if you see the effect on liver, and I've seen friends go down the drain on, well, I've lived in a lot of parts in this world, in the Arctic, in the more downtrodden areas, right? And I've seen a lot of drugs and stuff used, and hard drugs are detrimental. But again, hard drugs, import of hard drugs is used by the money the gangsters make on marijuana. Now, if we legalize marijuana and there is no big money in it, then you might have the odd time where somebody starts growing stuff, but that, you know, that is minimal to the whole cost of the thing.
Okay. So that's advantageous. Okay. You don't think there's any advantageous, anything advantageous about growing marijuana?
None whatsoever. Medical situations that Bert mentioned, there has been no concrete study yet to show that marijuana does alleviate any of the side effects from cancer cures, such as radiation and chemo.
Radiation is a different thing, Ron.
Yeah, but
Okay.
there's still pain and so forth that is caused because of the treatment for cancer. And if marijuana basically just takes away that, it puts you into a state of feeling better from the side effects of the medication that you're taking. We go back to the criminal element again. It's always going to be there. That criminal element will now push harder for the stronger drugs because they're not going to lose money. And the money that we bring in, supposedly from legalizing marijuana, is going to have to be used in other aspects of our society, healthcare and so forth. And if some of these, you say it's not a depressant, well, I believe it is. There is medical fact out there that it is. And there is a
Have you got proof of that?
Yeah, and the website is proandcon.org, and it's a medical explanation on both sides of the fence. One saying that this is the marijuana is good for this type of medical problem, and the other side says no, it's not, and states cases why it isn't. Now, I didn't bring all those in because of the short period of time that we have, but I have used that in regards to the fact that it is a depressant. It can damage the brain and lungs. If you're going to take smoke into your body, your lungs are going to have to take that. And marijuana is taken in through breathing and into the lungs.
Yeah, but it's also
Okay. Sorry, Bert.
Okay.
You can say what you want to, but what I want you to do is wrap it up now because we only have a couple minutes left, please. Whatever you want to say, your final comment, and let's let the folks at home know what you think.
Well, folks at home, what I think we should legalize, because between the cost and the studies done and the fact that even in the United States they are now thinking of cost and therapy, and they have come out with a thing in the voting list to legalize marijuana. And the States is quite often more conservative than Canadians are in a lot of ways, but that's where it started to happen, and I think it is an inevitable thing. If you really start looking at the cost and the truth of the whole matter, then the picture is clear. Legalization is the answer.
And the final word goes to Ron Campbell. And over there to the mic.
I'm going to quote from someone. I don't believe that it should be legalized. And this individual wraps up exactly what I've been saying. By characterizing the use of illegal drugs as a quasi-legal, state-sanctioned Saturday afternoon fun, legalizers destabilize the social norm that drug use is dangerous. They undercut the goals of stopping the initiation of drug use to prevent addiction. Children entering drug abuse treatment routinely report that they heard that pot is a medicine and therefore believed it to be good for them. And this is from Andrea Bartel. She's an MD, and she was the former director at the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. And I believe that she is correct. By introducing drugs into our system, we are introducing a downfall of our society.
Well, there you have it. You can't say anything more black and white than this. One on one side said, hey, it's time to do it. People are doing it. The drugs have always been with us. The other side said, so what? It doesn't matter. If it's bad, it's bad. What do you think, viewers? QToday at QCATV.ca. Let us know what you think. Thank you very much, Bert, for your opinion. Thank you very much, Ron, for yours.
And Bert, nice to talk to you.
Back to our anchors. Okay, now it's time to see what's happening in Quesnel with our Quesnel Community Calendar.
And this week we haven't got any pictures from Dave for Sutton Shutters, but stay tuned next week. We'll have a full slate.
His computer is shuttering again.
Uh-oh.
Okay. But coming up next week, we're also going to have Dave Brown back with Bert to talk about gold. And that's very apropos for Christmas season because gold's everywhere.
Everywhere, yes.
Yes.
Popular gift.
Very.
Well, that's it for this show. We want to hear from you, and we want to get your feedback and comments on some of the stories we've talked about today. And we want to know how you're doing. And we want to know what you think is important, because we think it's important too. So drop us a line at QToday@QCATV.ca with anything you think we should be covering here on the show.
Remember,
Q Today is about
Quesnel talking to Quesnel.